Most people wait to feel motivated before they take action. But the truth is, motivation doesn't come first. Action does. Right now, there are millions of people who feel exactly like you. Tired, lazy, unfocused, stuck in the same cycle of knowing what they should do but never doing it. And here's something nobody tells you. Feeling lazy doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've trained your mind to choose comfort over growth. This audiobook exists for one reason only: to help you force yourself to improve, even when every part of you wants to stay the same. Because improvement is not about inspiration, it's about control. If you're listening to this, chances are you've already tried motivation videos, productivity hacks, morning routines, and self-help advice. They worked for a few days. Then life pulled you back. That's not your fault. You were taught the wrong system. Real self-improvement doesn't start with excitement. It starts with discipline, especially on days when you feel lazy, tired, bored, or unmotivated. Let's be clear about something right now. Lazy is not who you are. Lazy is a habit, and habits can be broken. The reason you struggle to improve isn't because you don't want success badly enough. It's because your brain is wired to avoid discomfort. Your mind's job is not to make you successful. Its job is to keep you comfortable. Comfort feels safe. Growth feels dangerous. That's why improvement feels hard. Every time you choose your phone over your goals, every time you delay starting, every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do: protect you from effort. But here's the shift that changes everything. You don't need your brain's permission to act. You can force improvement by acting before you feel ready. High performers don't wait to feel motivated. They move first. They decide first. They act first. And feelings follow. Think about this. If motivation was required for success, nobody would be successful. The most disciplined people in the world don't feel motivated every day. They feel resistance. They feel laziness. They feel doubt. The difference is, they don't negotiate with those feelings. They understand one simple rule: you don't need to feel like doing something to do it. Right now, your life is shaped by what you do consistently. Not what you plan, not what you want, not what you think about. Consistency beats intensity every single time. You don't need a massive transformation. You need forced consistency. Force yourself to wake up. Force yourself to start. Force yourself to continue. Not forever, just today. Because improvement compounds. Most people fail because they try to change their entire life in 1 week. They burn out. They quit. They go back to old habits and feel even worse. This audiobook teaches the opposite approach. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your discipline. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. And yes, discipline feels uncomfortable. That's the point. Discomfort is the signal that you're improving. If you always feel comfortable, you are not growing. Your future self is begging you to stop choosing comfort. Every day you delay improvement, the cost increases. Not just in missed opportunities, but in confidence. When you break promises to yourself repeatedly, you stop trusting yourself. That's why laziness feels heavy. It's not physical, it's psychological. The solution is not more motivation. The solution is rebuilding self-trust. And self-trust is rebuilt through forced action. Do the thing you said you'd do, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Start small. Ridiculously small. 5 minutes of effort beats 0 minutes of planning. Momentum doesn't come from thinking. It comes from movement. Once you move, your brain adapts. Energy follows action. Clarity follows action. Confidence follows action. But if you wait to feel ready, you'll wait forever. Your environment is also working against you. Your phone, social media, instant entertainment, short dopamine hits. They train your brain to crave easy rewards. Improvement feels boring compared to scrolling. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. To force improvement, you must reduce friction for good habits and increase friction for bad ones. Make progress easier than distraction. Put your phone away. Prepare your workspace. Decide in advance what you'll do. Decision fatigue kills discipline. That's why routines work, not because they're magical, but because they remove choice. When there's no choice, there's no debate. You don't argue with brushing your teeth. You just do it. Improvement must become non-negotiable. Not dramatic, not emotional, non-negotiable. You don't need to improve fast. You need to improve daily. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. 1 year of forced daily effort will separate you from 99% of people. This audiobook is not here to hype you up. It's here to train you. Training is repetitive. Training is boring. Training works. You don't need to love the process. You need to respect the outcome. If you keep listening, you'll learn how to build discipline even when motivation is gone, how to break laziness patterns, how to rewire your habits, and how to become consistent without relying on willpower. But nothing changes unless you decide right now that comfort is no longer your priority. Improvement requires sacrifice. Either sacrifice comfort now or sacrifice your potential later. If this message is hitting you, that means you're ready, not because you feel excited, but because you're tired of staying the same. And that's enough. If you want to change your life, don't wait for a perfect moment. Force the imperfect one. Keep listening. And before we continue, if you want more long-form motivational audiobooks like this that actually change how you think, make sure you subscribe to this channel and stay connected. This is not entertainment. This is mental training. The next part will show you exactly how to break laziness at the identity level, not with tricks, but with systems. The reason laziness keeps coming back isn't because you lack discipline. It's because you still see laziness as something you have, not something you do. This is critical. You don't have a laziness problem. You have an identity problem. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. When you say, "I'm lazy," your brain looks for evidence to support that identity, and it will find it. Miss one workout, delay one task, break one promise, and suddenly your brain says, "See, this is who you are." But the truth is simpler and more powerful. You are not lazy. You are untrained. No one is born disciplined. Discipline is learned through repetition. High-performing people don't rely on personality. They rely on systems. If you want to force yourself to improve, you must stop asking, "How do I feel today?" and start asking, "What does my system require today?" Systems remove emotion. Emotion destroys consistency. When improvement depends on mood, it will fail. When improvement depends on structure, it survives bad days. This is why motivation-based improvement collapses. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is mechanical. Your job is not to feel ready. Your job is to execute the system. Think about this carefully. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your daily standards. And most people's standards are negotiable. They negotiate with themselves every morning. They negotiate when they feel tired. They negotiate when things get hard. Negotiation is where discipline dies. To force improvement, standards must be fixed. Fixed standards don't ask questions. They don't care how you feel. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They operate automatically. This is where identity-level change begins. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to improve," you say, "I am the type of person who does this daily." Not someday. Not when it's easy. Daily. Your brain takes identity seriously. When you identify as someone who finishes what they start, quitting feels uncomfortable. When you identify as someone who trains daily, skipping feels wrong. This is how discipline becomes easier, not because effort disappears, but because resistance shifts. Most people try to change behavior without changing identity. That never lasts. Behavior follows identity. Identity follows repeated behavior. You don't need to believe it yet. You need to prove it to yourself. And proof only comes from action. Small actions count more than big intentions. One workout done on a bad day is worth more than 10 planned workouts that never happen. One focused work session when you're tired builds more discipline than working only when you feel energetic. Improvement accelerates when you stop waiting for ideal conditions. There will never be a perfect time. There will never be a day without resistance. The resistance is the work. If you expect improvement to feel good all the time, you will quit the moment it doesn't. Discipline is not about feeling strong. It's about acting despite weakness. The most dangerous lie people tell themselves is, "I'll start when I feel better." Better doesn't come before action. Better comes after. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates energy. Energy creates motivation. You don't chase motivation. You create it. Another mistake people make is trying to rely on willpower. Willpower is limited. It fades with stress, fatigue, and decision overload. That's why forcing improvement means designing your life to require less willpower. Structure beats strength. Wake up at the same time. Train at the same time. Work at the same time. Routine turns effort into habit. Habits don't require motivation. They require repetition. This is why successful people protect their routines aggressively. They don't leave improvement to chance. If you want different results, you must make different daily choices, even when they feel boring. Boring is not bad. Boring is sustainable. Your brain will try to convince you that consistency is dull, that you need variety, excitement, new strategies. That's a distraction. The basics work. They always have. Sleep, movement, focused work, learning, repeat. Improvement doesn't need complexity. It needs execution. Another truth most people avoid: you can't improve in the same environment that made you lazy. Your environment shapes your behavior more than motivation ever will. If distractions are easy, discipline will be hard. If discipline is easy, distractions lose power. Force improvement by redesigning your surroundings. Remove temptation. Reduce friction. Make progress the default option. Put your phone out of reach. Block distracting apps. Prepare your tasks the night before. Don't rely on memory. Don't rely on mood. Design for success. Your future self will thank you. There will be days when you still don't want to do the work. That's normal. On those days, don't aim for excellence. Aim for completion. Finished beats perfect. A bad workout still counts. A short work session still counts. An imperfect day still builds discipline. What matters is that you didn't quit. Quitting teaches your brain that discomfort wins. Pushing through teaches your brain that you win. And every time you win that internal battle, discipline gets stronger. You're not forcing improvement forever. You're forcing it until it becomes who you are. At some point, not improving will feel uncomfortable. That's when you've changed. Most people never reach that point because they quit too early. They stop when progress feels slow. They stop when results aren't visible. They stop when effort isn't rewarded immediately. But improvement compounds silently. You don't see it day to day. You feel it months later. This is why patience is part of discipline. If you expect instant transformation, you'll miss long-term change. Trust the process you repeat. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You need to show up consistently. Force today, repeat tomorrow, stack the days. That's how lazy people become disciplined people, not through motivation, but through standards. And if you're still listening, that means part of you is ready to stop negotiating and start executing. That's enough to change everything. In the next part, we'll go deeper into how to stay consistent when progress feels invisible, how to beat mental fatigue, and how to keep improving even when life gets chaotic. And if this audiobook is helping you shift your mindset, make sure you stay connected by subscribing to this channel. More long-form, no-fluff mental training like this is coming, designed to help you win the internal battle every day. Keep listening. At some point, improvement stops feeling exciting. This is where most people quit. Not because they can't do the work, but because the feedback disappears. Early on, progress feels obvious. You feel motivated. You feel different. You feel proud. Then the novelty fades. The results slow down. The work feels repetitive. And your mind starts asking dangerous questions. Is this even working? Why am I trying so hard? Other people seem to succeed faster. This phase destroys more potential than failure ever could. Because nothing is wrong, you've simply entered the invisible progress stage. Real improvement happens quietly. Your body adapts before it changes shape. Your mind strengthens before confidence shows. Your skills sharpen before recognition comes. If you quit during this stage, you never experience the payoff. The ability to continue without visible reward is what separates disciplined people from frustrated ones. This is where forcing yourself to improve becomes a long-term skill. You must learn to trust effort without validation. Your brain is wired to seek immediate feedback. When it doesn't get it, it assumes the effort is pointless. That's a survival mechanism, not truth. The solution is to stop measuring progress emotionally. Feelings are unreliable metrics. Instead, measure inputs. Did you show up? Did you complete the task? Did you follow the system? If the answer is yes, you are improving, whether you feel it or not. High performers don't ask, "Do I feel better?" They ask, "Did I do the work?" Results lag behind actions, always. Another enemy of improvement is mental fatigue, not physical tiredness, mental resistance. Mental fatigue shows up as procrastination, distraction, and the urge to escape. Your mind doesn't want to focus, it wants relief. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They try to force intensity when they should force consistency. You don't need to push harder, you need to show up smarter. Short, focused effort beats long, unfocused struggle. When mental fatigue hits, lower the bar, but don't stop. 10 minutes of focused work keeps momentum alive. Stopping completely breaks the chain. Discipline is fragile when broken, strong when protected. Never miss twice. Missing once is human. Missing twice becomes a pattern. Patterns shape identity. Your brain doesn't care about intentions. It cares about evidence. Each completed task is evidence that you're becoming disciplined. Each skipped commitment is evidence that quitting is acceptable. Be careful what you teach yourself. Another truth people avoid: improvement requires boredom tolerance. Boredom is not the enemy. Distraction is. The ability to stay with a task when it's no longer interesting is a rare skill. And rare skills create uncommon results. Most people escape boredom instantly, through their phones, entertainment, or noise. But boredom is where focus deepens. When stimulation drops, clarity rises. If you can train yourself to stay present during boredom, you gain an advantage most people never develop. This is why deep work feels uncomfortable at first. Your brain is detoxing from constant stimulation. The discomfort fades with repetition, but only if you stay. Consistency also fails when people attach their self-worth to outcomes. They think, if I don't see results, I'm failing. That's backwards. Failure is not quitting. Failure is refusing to try again. Improvement is non-linear. Some weeks you'll feel unstoppable. Other weeks you'll feel slow and distracted. Both are normal. The disciplined person continues in both states. They don't overreact to success. They don't overreact to setbacks. They stay neutral. They stay steady. This emotional stability is what keeps progress alive. Another reason people struggle is overloading themselves. They add too many habits at once. They try to improve everything simultaneously. That creates pressure, not progress. Pressure leads to burnout. Burnout leads to quitting. Force improvement by narrowing focus. 1 or 2 core habits, done daily. Without drama. You don't need a perfect system. You need a sustainable one. Sustainability beats intensity every time. The goal is not to transform your life in a month. The goal is to build a system you can maintain for years. That's how change becomes permanent. You don't win by doing more. You win by quitting less. Every day you don't quit, you're winning. This audiobook is not trying to push you beyond your limits. It's teaching you how to live just below them, consistently. That's where growth happens. Your environment will continue to test you. Distractions will return. Old habits will tempt you. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. The disciplined response is not frustration. It's adjustment. Remove distractions again. Recommit again. Return to the system. Improvement is a series of returns. Each return builds resilience. Each return makes quitting harder next time. If you feel like progress is slow right now, that's okay. Slow progress is still progress. The only unacceptable outcome is stopping. Stay long enough, and the results will catch up. This is how average people become exceptional, not through talent, but through endurance. If you're still listening, you're doing something most people won't. You're staying when it's uncomfortable. That alone puts you ahead. In the next part, we'll talk about how to handle failure without losing momentum, how to recover fast from bad days, and how to stay disciplined during stress, chaos, and pressure. And if this audiobook is helping you think differently about discipline and self-improvement, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Long-form, evergreen mental training like this is rare, and it's built for people who want real change, not quick motivation. Keep going. Failure is not the opposite of improvement. Quitting is. Most people think failure ruins progress. It doesn't. What ruins progress is the emotional reaction to failure. One bad day turns into a bad week. One mistake turns into self-doubt, and self-doubt turns into inaction. The disciplined response to failure is not self-criticism. It's correction. You don't need to feel guilty. You need to get back on track. The faster you recover, the stronger your discipline becomes. This is a skill, and like any skill, it can be trained. Failure only has power when you give it meaning. If you tell yourself, "I failed because I'm lazy," your brain accepts that identity. If you tell yourself, "I failed because I'm human," you move forward. High performers don't personalize failure. They analyze it. They ask, what broke in the system? Not, what's wrong with me? Systems fail. People adapt. This shift alone will change how you improve. Another mistake people make is trying to make up for bad days. They miss one workout and try to do 3 the next day. They miss one deadline and overload themselves with work. That creates pressure, not progress. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about consistency. You don't need to compensate. You need to continue. The rule is simple. Never miss twice. Miss once. Reset immediately. No emotion, no explanation. Just return. Returning quickly is more important than performing perfectly. This is how you protect momentum. Stress is another major threat to improvement. When life gets chaotic, discipline is usually the first thing people abandon. They say, "I'll get back to it when things calm down." But life rarely calms down. Waiting for calm is a trap. The people who improve long-term are the ones who adapt discipline to chaos, not the ones who pause it. During stressful periods, your system must simplify. This is critical. Lower the intensity, lower the volume, keep the habit. A short workout during stress beats no workout. 10 minutes of focus during chaos beats none. Discipline during stress builds identity faster than discipline during easy times, because you're proving to yourself that improvement is non-negotiable. Pressure reveals standards. If discipline disappears under pressure, it was never solid. This doesn't mean forcing extreme effort. It means protecting the routine at all costs. When everything feels out of control, routines create stability. They anchor you. Your mind needs predictability to stay disciplined. This is why daily structure is powerful. Same wake-up time, same improvement window, same non-negotiables. Even when life changes, standards remain. Another thing people misunderstand is rest. Rest is not quitting. Rest is strategic recovery. Burnout happens when you confuse discipline with constant intensity. You don't need to push hard every day. You need to show up every day. Some days are for effort. Some days are for maintenance. Both count. If you rest intentionally, you return stronger. If you quit emotionally, you lose momentum. Know the difference. Improvement also requires honesty. You must stop lying to yourself about effort. If you say you're trying but your actions don't reflect it, that's not discipline. That's self-deception. Real improvement starts when you tell yourself the truth without judgment. Not harshly, clearly. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. Consistency is boring. Consistency is powerful. Most people underestimate how far consistency can take them. 5 years of consistent effort will outperform talent, luck, and motivation combined. But only if you don't quit. Another reason people fail is external validation. They want approval. They want recognition. They want praise. Improvement fueled by validation is fragile. When recognition disappears, effort disappears. You must learn to improve in silence. Do the work when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one cares. That's where real strength forms. Your future results are being built right now, in invisible moments. Respect those moments. This audiobook is not about becoming extreme. It's about becoming reliable. Reliable to yourself. If you say you'll do something, you do it. That's confidence. That's discipline. Confidence doesn't come from thinking positively. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. Every promise kept strengthens self-trust. Every promise broken weakens it. Choose carefully. You are training your future behavior with every decision you make today. If you want to force improvement, stop focusing on outcomes. Focus on standards. Standards don't care how you feel. They care what you do. If you maintain standards long enough, results are inevitable. In the next part, we'll focus on long-term identity transformation, how to stay disciplined for years, not weeks, and how to make improvement automatic instead of forced. And if this audiobook is helping you build real discipline instead of chasing motivation, make sure you stay connected by subscribing to this channel. This channel exists for people who want lasting change, not temporary hype. Keep going. At a certain point, forcing yourself to improve stops feeling like force. That's the goal. Not to fight yourself forever, but to train yourself until discipline becomes normal. Most people never reach this stage because they confuse difficulty with danger. When improvement feels hard, they assume something is wrong. They assume they're pushing too much. They assume they're not built for consistency. That's false. Hard is not a warning sign. Hard is a training signal. The brain resists change because change threatens identity. But once a behavior is repeated long enough, resistance fades. This is how discipline becomes automatic. Automatic discipline doesn't mean effort disappears. It means hesitation disappears. You stop asking, "Should I do this?" You simply do it. That's identity level change. Identity is the most powerful force in human behavior. You don't rise to your goals. You act in alignment with who you believe you are. If you see yourself as someone who trains, you train. If you see yourself as someone who works consistently, you work. If you see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, quitting feels unnatural. This is why long-term improvement requires patience. You are not just building habits. You are rewriting self-image. And self-image changes slowly, but permanently. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They start seeing progress and relax. They get comfortable again. Comfort is dangerous, not because comfort is bad, but because it invites complacency. Discipline must be maintained even when life improves, especially when life improves. Success doesn't remove the need for discipline. It increases it. The higher you go, the easier it is to fall back. That's why disciplined people don't celebrate by abandoning their standards. They reward themselves without breaking structure. They understand that discipline is freedom. Freedom from regret. Freedom from inconsistency. Freedom from starting over again and again. Another critical shift happens at this stage. You stop measuring improvement by how hard it feels. You measure it by how reliable you've become. Reliability is power. When you know you'll show up regardless of mood, weather, or circumstances, fear loses its grip. You stop doubting yourself. Confidence grows quietly. Not from affirmations, not from hype, from evidence. Evidence that you do what you say you'll do. This is real self-esteem. Self-esteem is self-trust, and self-trust is built one kept promise at a time. This is why forcing yourself to improve in the beginning is worth it. You're not just chasing results. You're building a version of yourself you can rely on, a version that doesn't quit when it gets uncomfortable, a version that doesn't need external motivation, a version that acts even when energy is low. That version changes everything. At this stage, you must protect your standards, not aggressively, quietly, no announcements, no explanations, just consistency. People may not notice immediately, but over time, they will. And when they do, they'll call it discipline, talent, or luck. They won't see the forced days, the boring days, the invisible days. But you'll know, that's enough. Long-term improvement also requires humility. You must accept that discipline is never finished. There is no final level where effort disappears. There are only seasons. Some seasons require more force. Some require maintenance. Some require recovery. But quitting is never part of the cycle. The disciplined person doesn't quit. They adjust. This flexibility is what makes discipline sustainable for years. Rigid people burn out. Adaptive people last. If you want improvement to last decades, not months, you must respect rest, adjust intensity, and protect the core habits. Core habits never disappear. They shrink when needed, but they don't vanish. That's the difference between disciplined people and motivated people. Motivated people stop when it's inconvenient. Disciplined people adapt and continue. At some point, you'll look back and realize something important. You no longer need to force yourself the way you used to. The fight is quieter. The resistance is weaker. The work is still there, but the identity is stronger. That's success, not a dramatic transformation. A stable one. A stable mindset. A stable routine. A stable sense of self. And stability creates momentum that compounds for life. If you're listening to this and wondering if it's really possible to change this deeply, the answer is yes. Not because you're special, but because change is mechanical. Do the work, repeat it, protect it. That's it. No shortcuts, no hacks, no excuses, just standards. Before we move into the final part of this audiobook, take a moment and recognize something. You stayed. You didn't quit halfway. You didn't skip when it got heavy. That's discipline in action. And if this audiobook has helped you think differently about improvement, consistency, and self-discipline, make sure you subscribe to this channel. This channel exists for people who are done negotiating with their potential. By now you understand something most people never fully accept. Improvement is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were capable of being all along, without excuses. The final stage of forcing yourself to improve is not intensity. It's ownership. Ownership of your time. Ownership of your standards. Ownership of your future. At this stage, discipline is no longer something you chase. It's something you protect. You protect it the same way you protect your health, your reputation, and your peace. Because you now understand the cost of losing it. The greatest threat to long-term improvement is not laziness. It's forgetting why discipline matters. When life gets better, when stress reduces, when things feel easier, the temptation to relax standards increases. This is where people fall back, not because they're weak, but because they stop paying attention. Attention is discipline's fuel. If you stop paying attention to your habits, old patterns return quietly. That's why lifetime discipline requires awareness, not force. You don't need to push yourself aggressively forever. You need to stay conscious. Conscious of how you spend your mornings. Conscious of how you respond to resistance. Conscious of how often you choose comfort over growth. This awareness keeps you aligned. Another critical rule for lifelong improvement is this: never identify with a temporary setback. Bad weeks will happen. Low-energy seasons will happen. Moments of doubt will happen. They do not define you. What defines you is how quickly you return to your standards. Return speed matters more than perfection. If you can return quickly, you are unstoppable. This is how disciplined people avoid relapse. They don't spiral. They don't dramatize. They don't quit emotionally. They notice the slip and correct it immediately. No guilt, no punishment, just correction. This calm response is maturity. The undisciplined person reacts emotionally. The disciplined person responds strategically. That difference determines everything. Another truth you must carry forward is this: your discipline must evolve as your life evolves. What worked at one stage may need adjustment later. The mistake is thinking adjustment equals weakness. It doesn't. Refusing to adjust leads to burnout. Adjusting intelligently leads to longevity. Discipline that lasts decades is flexible, not fragile. It bends without breaking. This means learning when to push and when to maintain. Some days are about progress. Some days are about protection. Both are valuable. If you force high intensity forever, you will break. If you abandon structure completely, you will drift. The balance is awareness. Daily execution at this stage becomes simple. You wake up. You do what you said you'd do. You don't negotiate with feelings. You don't overthink the process. You execute. Execution is calm, quiet, consistent. There's no hype here, no drama, just reliability. This reliability becomes your greatest advantage. While others start and stop, you continue. While others wait for motivation, you act. While others reset again and again, you build forward. Years from now, this consistency will look like talent. It's not. It's discipline sustained. And here's the most important thing to remember as you finish this audiobook. You will never feel finished. There is no final version of you that no longer needs effort. There is only the version of you who shows up, and the one who doesn't. Every day you choose which one you feed. If you feed discipline, it grows. If you feed comfort, it takes over. That choice never disappears. But it does get easier. Not because life becomes simpler, but because you become stronger. You stop fearing discomfort. You stop avoiding effort. You stop needing permission to improve. You act because it's who you are. And once discipline becomes identity, improvement becomes inevitable. Not fast, not flashy, but permanent. If you ever feel yourself slipping back into old patterns, remember this: you don't need to restart your life. You just need to restart today. One decision, one action, one return, that's all it ever takes. And now, as this audiobook comes to a close, understand something clearly. You don't need another motivational video. You don't need another plan. You don't need another promise. You need execution. Quiet, daily, unnegotiated. That's how you force yourself to improve when you feel lazy. That's how you stay disciplined when motivation disappears. That's how you build a life you don't need to escape from. If this audiobook helped you think differently, act differently, or see yourself more clearly, make sure you subscribe to this channel. This channel is built for people who are serious about long-term change, not quick inspiration. And if you return to this message months or years from now, let it remind you of one simple truth. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not incapable. You are just one disciplined decision away from momentum. Make that decision today. Even after everything you've learned, there will be moments when you feel yourself slowing down again. That doesn't mean this didn't work. It means you're human. Improvement is not a straight line. It's a long road with curves, pauses, and recalibrations. The difference now is this: you are no longer confused about what to do. When motivation drops, you don't panic. When energy fades, you don't quit. When laziness whispers, you don't obey it. You recognize it. Recognition is power. Most people don't fail because they lack knowledge. They fail because they forget. They forget what discipline costs. They forget what inconsistency steals from them. They forget how hard it was to rebuild momentum the last time. You don't need more information. You need reminders. That's what this part is. A reminder that the easiest days to quit are often the most dangerous. Not the hard days, the comfortable ones. Comfort dulls urgency. When things are fine, people stop pushing. They delay improvement. They loosen standards. And slowly, quietly, progress disappears. This is why disciplined people schedule discomfort. They don't wait for life to challenge them. They challenge themselves on purpose. They train when it's boring. They work when it's quiet. They improve when no one is watching. That way, when pressure arrives, they're ready. Another truth you must accept is this. You cannot save time by avoiding effort. Avoided effort always returns, with interest. The workout you skip today becomes the weakness you fight later. The work you delay becomes the stress you carry tomorrow. The discipline you avoid becomes the regret you live with. Discipline pays you back immediately in peace and later in results. Laziness feels good now and expensive later. Discipline feels hard now and easy later. You always pay. You just choose when. At this stage, improvement becomes less about pushing and more about protecting. Protecting your mornings, protecting your focus, protecting your standards. Your morning routine matters more than motivation ever will. How you start the day sets the tone for how you treat yourself. If you start by delaying, scrolling, and avoiding, you train hesitation. If you start by acting, even imperfectly, you train execution. You don't need a perfect morning. You need an intentional one. One action that signals discipline. That signal compounds. Another long-term key is learning when to say no. Every yes costs energy. Every unnecessary commitment steals focus. Discipline is not only about what you do, it's about what you refuse. Refusing distractions, refusing excuses, refusing environments that weaken you. You don't owe access to your time or attention to anyone. Protecting your discipline may disappoint others. That's the price. The alternative is disappointing yourself. Choose wisely. Over time, you'll notice something subtle but powerful. You stop craving motivation. Motivation becomes optional. You no longer need to feel inspired to act. You act because action is normal. This is when improvement becomes sustainable. Not emotional, not dramatic, sustainable. At this point, setbacks don't scare you. You trust yourself to recover. That trust is earned. And once it's earned, life feels lighter. Not easier, lighter. Because you're no longer carrying the weight of self-doubt. You know that even if things fall apart, you can rebuild. That confidence changes how you move through the world. You take more responsibility. You avoid less effort. You stop running from discomfort. And slowly, opportunities appear. Not because the world changed, but because you did. People trust disciplined people. They rely on them. They promote them. They follow them. Discipline is quiet influence, and it starts internally. If at any point you feel overwhelmed by everything you've heard, remember this. You don't need to apply all of it at once. One standard, one routine, one non-negotiable. That's enough. You don't win by doing everything. You win by doing something every day. And if you ever forget this entire audiobook, remember one line. You don't need motivation to improve. You need a decision you refuse to renegotiate. That decision, repeated daily, becomes your life. If this message reached you at the right time, stay connected. Subscribe to this channel for more long-form, discipline-based audiobooks built for real change, not temporary hype. And when you're ready, come back and listen again. Not for motivation, but for reinforcement. Because discipline is not learned once, it's practiced for life. There comes a stage where improvement is no longer about fixing yourself. It's about honoring yourself. You stop seeing discipline as correction and start seeing it as respect. Respect for your time. Respect for your energy. Respect for the future you're building quietly. Most people treat themselves casually. They cancel on themselves. They delay promises they would never break for others. Disciplined people don't do that. They understand that self-respect is not a feeling. It's a pattern of behavior. Every time you show up when it would be easier not to, you send a clear message to your mind. I matter. That message compounds. This is why forcing yourself to improve eventually stops feeling like force and starts feeling like alignment. You are no longer fighting who you are. You are acting in line with who you've decided to become. At this stage, improvement becomes quieter. You don't talk about it. You don't announce goals. You don't seek validation. You execute privately. Silence protects discipline. When you talk too much about goals, you release emotional pressure without doing the work. You feel progress without earning it. That weakens urgency. Quiet execution keeps urgency alive. Another truth most people miss is this. Life will never stop testing your discipline. There will always be reasons to skip, always reasons to delay, always reasons to choose comfort. Discipline is not about eliminating those reasons. It's about acting despite them. Waiting for a life without excuses is waiting forever. This is why disciplined people simplify decisions. They don't ask, should I? They ask, is this part of my standard? If yes, they act. If no, they decline. This clarity removes mental friction. Mental friction is exhausting. Clarity is energizing. When decisions are clear, execution is lighter. Another thing that changes at this stage is how you handle emotions. You stop trying to control how you feel. You stop waiting to feel better. You allow emotions to exist without letting them decide. Feeling tired doesn't mean stop. Feeling bored doesn't mean quit. Feeling unmotivated doesn't mean delay. It just means you're human. Action is not a reward for feeling good. Action is a commitment regardless of feeling. This emotional neutrality is powerful. You stop being reactive. You become consistent. And consistency outperforms intensity every time. Over months and years, something important happens. You stop identifying as someone who is trying to improve. You simply become someone who improves. There is no announcement, no moment of arrival, just a pattern that no longer breaks easily. This is how long-term discipline protects you from regression. You don't fall all the way back because you no longer live at the edge of chaos. You've built structure. Structure creates stability. Stability creates freedom. Freedom to think clearly. Freedom to take risks. Freedom to build without constantly repairing damage. This is the real reward of discipline. Not just success, but peace. Peace that comes from knowing you're not avoiding your potential. Peace that comes from knowing you'll handle what comes next. At this stage, even rest feels different. Rest is intentional, not escapism. You rest to recover, not to avoid. You return sharper, not guilty. That's balance. Another long-term principle to lock in is this. Never confuse slowing down with stopping. Life will demand adjustments. Energy levels will fluctuate. Priorities will shift. Slowing down is strategy. Stopping is surrender. Disciplined people slow down without losing identity. They keep the core habit alive. That's how progress survives real life. If you ever feel yourself drifting again, don't panic. Drift happens slowly, and it's reversible. All it takes is one enforced standard, one routine restored, one promise kept. Momentum returns faster than you think, because you've been here before. That's experience. Experience is what separates beginners from disciplined individuals. You now know what works and what doesn't. You know that motivation fades. You know that consistency wins. You know that improvement is earned quietly. Carry that forward. This audiobook is not meant to end your struggle. It's meant to end your confusion. You no longer need to wonder why you feel stuck. You no longer need to search for the next hack. The answer is boring, simple, reliable. Do the work. Protect the standard. Repeat. If you do that long enough, laziness loses its power. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer controls you. You control the response, and control is freedom. If this message continues to resonate, stay connected to this channel. This space exists for people who are building discipline for life, not chasing temporary motivation. At some point, discipline stops being about your current situation. It becomes about your future self. You begin to think in decades instead of days. Most people live inside short timelines. They think about today, this week, maybe this year. Disciplined people zoom out. They ask different questions. What kind of life am I building over the next 10 years? What habits will still matter when motivation is gone? What version of myself do I want to be proud of later? This shift changes behavior automatically. Short-term comfort loses power when long-term clarity is strong. You stop asking, what do I feel like doing today? You start asking, what will I be grateful I did 10 years from now? That question filters distractions instantly. Legacy is not about fame. It's about consistency. It's about being reliable over time. Your future is shaped less by big moments and more by boring decisions repeated thousands of times. This is why disciplined people respect the small things. They don't dismiss a skipped workout. They don't ignore a broken routine. They don't excuse repeated delays. Not because they're extreme, but because they understand accumulation. Small actions compound. Small neglect compounds too. Over decades, the difference is massive. Another change that happens at this stage is responsibility. You stop blaming circumstances. Not because circumstances don't matter, but because blaming removes control. Control is everything. If you believe you can't act because of circumstances, you hand your power away. Disciplined people refuse to do that. They work with what they have. Limited time? They protect a small routine. Low energy? They reduce intensity, not identity. Busy life? They anchor discipline in non-negotiables. This adaptability is what keeps improvement alive long-term. You also stop romanticizing struggle. Early on, struggle feels meaningful. Later, efficiency becomes more valuable. Disciplined people don't seek suffering. They seek effectiveness. They want results with the least unnecessary friction. This maturity keeps them consistent for decades instead of burning out. Another long-term principle is this: you become what you tolerate. If you tolerate disorganization, your life becomes chaotic. If you tolerate excuses, your standards drop. If you tolerate inconsistency, progress stalls. Tolerance shapes identity. Disciplined people are selective. They tolerate effort. They tolerate discomfort. They don't tolerate drift. That line matters. As years pass, discipline starts influencing more than productivity. It shapes relationships, health, reputation. People trust disciplined individuals. They know what to expect. Trust compounds just like habits. And trust creates opportunities that talent alone never will. At this level, improvement is no longer urgent. It's embedded. You don't rush. You don't panic. You keep moving. That calm consistency is powerful. While others react emotionally to setbacks, you adjust strategically. That difference shows up everywhere. In careers, in finances, in health, in leadership. Leadership especially is rooted in discipline. People don't follow motivation. They follow reliability. If you show up consistently, others feel safe around you. Safety creates influence. Influence creates impact. Impact becomes legacy. Legacy is not what you say. It's what you model. If people watch you handle stress with discipline, they learn. If they see you honor routines, they learn. If they see you recover calmly from setbacks, they learn. You don't need to teach, you demonstrate. That's power. At this stage, improvement feels less like climbing and more like maintaining altitude. You don't fall far because your standards catch you. This is why forcing yourself to improve early is worth it. Early discipline creates late freedom. Freedom from panic. Freedom from regret. Freedom from constantly starting over. That freedom is rare. Most people live reactive lives. Disciplined people live intentional ones. And intentional living compounds quietly into a life that feels solid, not perfect, not effortless, solid. If you ever wonder whether all this effort is worth it, remember this. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. You will forget the tired days. You will forget the boring routines. You will not forget the pride of knowing you didn't quit. That pride is earned, and it stays. As this part comes to a close, understand that long-term discipline is not about becoming rigid. It's about becoming reliable, reliable to yourself, reliable to your values, reliable to the future you're building. That reliability will carry you through seasons of doubt, stress, and change. How to force yourself to improve, even when you feel lazy. Channel name. The motivational audiobook spot. Right now, pause for a second. Ask yourself one honest question. How long have you been waiting to feel motivated? Days, months, years? Here's the truth most people never accept. You don't improve because you feel motivated. You improve because you decide to move, especially when you feel lazy. And if this message is hitting you right now, it's not by accident. You're here because deep down, you know you're capable of more. More discipline, more focus, more success. But comfort keeps pulling you back, scrolling, procrastinating, telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow. Let me be very clear with you. Tomorrow is the most dangerous lie your mind tells you. The people who win in life are not special. They are not superhuman. They simply learned one skill. They force themselves to improve, even when they don't feel like it. And that's exactly what this audiobook is about. If you want real change, not fake motivation, if you want discipline that lasts when emotions fade, if you want to build a mindset that shows up on hard days, then this channel is for you. Here at the Motivational Audiobook Spot, we don't sell comfort. We don't sugarcoat reality. We train your mind for self-discipline, mental toughness, focus and consistency, long-term success. This is where laziness dies and self-respect is built. But here's the part most people skip. Nothing changes unless you commit. So right now, take action. Subscribe to the Motivational Audiobook Spot, because every single video here is designed to rewire your mindset, like this video, because it tells the algorithm to push discipline instead of distraction. Comment below, I will improve no matter how I feel. That comment is not for us. It's a contract with yourself. And if you're thinking, I've failed before, I lack discipline, I feel lazy all the time. Good. That means you're human. Discipline is not built when life is easy. It's built when you're tired, when you're unmotivated, when no one is watching. And that's why you need to stay connected to this channel, because every time your mind tries to quit, the Motivational Audiobook Spot will remind you who you're becoming. Not tomorrow, not next week, starting now. Stay hungry, stay disciplined, and remember, force yourself to improve. And one day, improvement will feel natural. Welcome to the Motivational Audiobook Spot.